I watched a YouTube video that popped up in my feed from a creator I had never watched before, Connor Woodman. And his video was encouraging his viewers to produce something, to stop consuming and start producing. And for most of us, that means stop consuming content and actually do something productive, produce something, make something with your hands. And if you do it poorly, that's okay. Just produce something every day. Stop consuming, start producing. So I'm going to produce a YouTube video that will address my recent diagnosis with adrenal insufficiency, secondary adrenal insufficiency. I have been having vague and varying symptoms for many years and always attributed them to stress and other things that were going on in my life. I never realized that a lot of these symptoms were indeed connected, or that they would have had a physiological cause. And a few months ago, I was bordering on what I now know was an adrenal crisis. I have never been more scared that I was dying. I thought that I was having either a heart attack or a stroke or a seizure. I didn't know what, I thought that I thought I was going to be found dead in my office. It was terrifying. And I called out to God to please let me have 6 more years until my youngest turns 18, to just give me 6 more years. I made it through that crisis and I didn't know what happened. I was like trying to write it off as like, was that the craziest anxiety attack I've ever had? Was that because I drank a Monster Energy? I was stupid. And then the second crisis several weeks later, that's when I did end up getting medical help. Although they didn't diagnose it as a crisis at the moment or at the time, I went in the next day and they didn't know it was a crisis. My primary did lots of blood work and realized that my DHEA was extraordinarily low and had been for years. He did not test my cortisol. I don't know why, that's another story. But anyhow, working with him and a cardiologist and finally the endocrinologist, I did get the cortisol test. My cortisol it's off the charts low. And I have been put on hydrocortisone and have been told that there's a chance that I might be on that the rest of my life. I have to take 20 to 25 milligrams, and I'm still working on the dosing and the spacing of that. And that's a lot to digest, that suddenly I have to be on a medication for the rest of my life, or my blood pressure can crash and I could die. That's a lot to take in. They are doing a scan of my hypothalamus and my pituitary gland tomorrow, and I'm trying to be strong and not worry too much, but going in for an MRI of my brain, I find to be nerve-wracking. Like I'm rattled. It does scare me, but I have to give it up to God and, thy will be done, and we will get through no matter what it is. So I thought that maybe I could make a few videos that talk about some of the symptoms that I had. Hindsight being 2020, what I can see, like in retrospect, that was probably symptoms of this and how that all came to pass, and can update chronicle what happens with the scan tomorrow and kind of as this diagnosis unfurls and becomes more clear. So hopefully there's nothing else more sinister going on, and that it's just a deteriorated portion of my pituitary gland, and that it's just hydrocortisone that will be needed. But they are also talking about giving me estradiol, which is the more bioequivalent and bioavailable form of estrogen, because my estrogen is also crashed out, which is another story. But I mean, it's all intertwined with the hypothalamus pituitary pathway. So hopefully the scan will show us things that we can show us what the doctors need to know to give a better, more comprehensive diagnosis and assessment of what's been going on. And I plan to share a little bit more about the symptoms that I've had and maybe other things that maybe contributed to this, stress-wise and whatnot. So anyhow, I'm a mom, I'm an Orthodox Christian, and I like to bake sourdough bread. So that's what I do.